enhance youth development efforts. The National Youth Parliament thus showcases the true spirit of the South African youth, one of commitment and selfless devotion to nation building. Let us use our energies in constructive avenues, and instead of destruction, let us focus on construction. Remember the freedom that the youth of 1976 fought for. We are still fighting for this day, especially in terms of economic emancipation, and we still rely on our young people to guide us and provide insight to matters you feel strongly about. Therefore, we are excited to join you, our future leaders, to tackle youth issues that continue to plague you and us all. Not only do you benefit from the space and opportunity, but we stand to benefit immensely from your innovation, fresh ideas, and energies. In conclusion, Madam Program Director, let me conclude by posing a challenge to the children of Mandela, the pillars of our future and pillars of democracy. In the words of Frantz Fanon, I quote, "Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover their mission, fulfill it or betray it," I close quote. The young lions of 1976 discovered their mission, fulfilled it, and never betrayed it. What is your mission going to be? Are you going to fulfill it or betray it? The South African legislative sector is offering a hand of partnership to create a conducive conditions for you to fulfill your mission and contribute to the fight against inequality, poverty, and massive unemployment, especially amongst young people. Madam Program Director, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gauteng, the economic and cultural hub and the heartbeat of South Africa and the gateway to our continent, Africa. We wish the National Youth Parliament a fruitful deliberation and commit to working with the young people to improve their quality of life. I thank you.
I have the pleasure, the honor to call on the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Baleka Mbete, to talk to us about why we are here and why we think it is important to observe the 40th anniversary of June 16. The Honorable Speaker.
There are no revolutionary songs in Parliament. Madam Program Director, our very, very distinguished young guests who are the most important people in this gathering. And I want to repeat what the Program Director has already stated, and that is that we have here a gathering of young people that are in delegations from all 9 provinces. Well, we have a whole lot of white chairs that are not making our picture look very good, but we can assure you that even the province of Gauteng is here in terms of its delegation. So we had been actually generous by saying, let's provide more chairs so that we can have more people hopefully coming from this province to join us. Honorable presiding officers of the National Parliament, speakers and deputy speakers of provincial legislatures, honorable members and honorable MPLs, distinguished young guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm very pleased to be here today, as I am always inspired by young people. I have 5 in my family, in my own family directly. I'm also very pleased that we as the South African legislative sector are becoming exactly that, a sector that is increasingly cementing our relationship by building common understandings best practice, and cohesion amongst ourselves. The value of collaborating as a sector is indeed beginning to yield excellent results, especially in respect of improved oversight and thus improved outcomes for our people. This must be seen in the context of our being part of building a new South African nation out of the ashes of a divided past. Program Director, we meet in this month, which 40 years ago gave rise to the heroism of the youth of 1976. Each year, Parliament convenes, amongst others, the Youth Parliament during this month to celebrate the courage of our past generations, to inspire and urge our youth of today forward. We do so to acknowledge and draw lessons from the heroism of a generation of youth who stood resolute and principled against apartheid, an unjust and brutal regime of the time. The youth of 1976 fought for the rights and the liberation of all of us, for me, for you, and future generations. This year, a few days ago, we also, as a nation, commemorated the anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter, which was held on the 26th of June, 1955, right here in Kliptown, spelling out the people's vision of the kind of South Africa they desired. Today, the Freedom Charter is the foundation of our new constitution. And indeed, as the Freedom Charter declares so boldly, the people shall govern. Today, many of the youth of 1976, and I'm glad to say some of them are here, are giving fruition to the Freedom Charter by contributing towards the reconstruction and development of our democratic South Africa in many sectors of the economy in the country and the world. Indeed, the struggle and sacrifices of the youth of 1976 were not in vain. Your generation is growing up in times of breathtaking change. Color no longer determines where one lives, where one goes to school or church, or what work one can do, or even who you can love. You are free to love anybody, anywhere. Black people no longer have to carry passes or seek permits to live and work in urban areas. Indeed, there are no longer public spaces that are designated for certain race groups only, such as beaches, parks, or public transport. These are all examples of the manifestations of the institutionalized racism that our people had to endure every day. Of course, in recent times, we have seen evidence or heard evidence that shows that there's a lot more work we still have to do in relation to the whole challenge of racism amongst ourselves as South African citizens. Today, we live in a vibrant democracy where the executive, parliament, and the judiciary perform their tasks cooperatively and sometimes robustly, advancing democracy and promoting the rights of all our people. Today, we live in a country where the government has systematic and sustainable programs in place, providing basic services that improve the quality of life to our people. Millions of people now have access to water, electricity, housing, hospital care, quality education, and other services which have led to an improvement in the quality of life. As the youth of today, you have the challenge and the honor to inherit a better country. You must continue to fashion as the leaders of tomorrow. In your lives, you've seen massive global declines in poverty and disease. You've seen incredible strides in the realization of women's rights. You've mastered technology. The world is connected now in ways that we couldn't imagine even 10 or 20 years ago. And yet, even though you've come of age at a time when change is happening so rapidly, your generation still can change this world and take us to even greater heights. You are more interested in very hard work, the hard work of waging peace, which is harder than the easy impulse towards conflict. You are more interested in the hard work of building prosperity through entrepreneurship and innovation. I see you as a generation of youth who are more eager to the progress that comes not from holding down other people who are not like you, but lifting everybody up so that everybody has an opportunity regardless of what they look like or how they pray or whom they love. And that makes all of us hopeful. It makes all of us constructive and positive as we build the future. And unlike any other time in history, the technology at your disposal means that you don't have to settle for the world as it is. You can create the world as you want it to be. You already have the freedom to build a world in powerful and sometimes disruptive ways. So this is extraordinary progress. Program Director, of course, we do not live on an island. We are part of the globe, and we are just as much affected by what others do elsewhere in the world. In recent years, the global economy has slowed down, and this has affected our country's economic growth, inflicting hardship here at home. We are aware that still too many communities endure pain due to the challenges of unemployment, inequality, and poverty. We know very well too that many of our people are still waiting for basic services given the backlogs. Rising to the call of the youth of 1976, and indeed the calls of the youth of today, our government continues to prioritize education as an instrument of liberation. Education is a key to development and a better life. As such, it receives the biggest chunk of the national budget. Armed with education, you will add much greater value to local governance and the creation of a better life in our communities. Each year, we build new schools and refurbish others to improve the learning environment. 795 schools since 2009 have been built at a cost of 23 billion rand. Communities throughout the country have been the recipients of 78 new libraries, in addition to 304 that have been upgraded. We are determined that poverty must never prevent a child from obtaining an education. To improve access to education, at least 80% of our public schools are now no-fee schools, and 9 million children are exempted from paying school fees. In this way, we are making sure that every child in our country has an opportunity to receive an education. Ensuring that our country is equipped and skilled to move us forward, government is also building 3 new universities and 12 technical education colleges to expand access to higher education. Moving with the times, the need has also been identified to invest more and more resources into information and communication technologies in education. Right here in Gauteng, learners have been offered tablets to promote e-learning in our schools. Government is also increasing funding for education from 318 million rand in 2010 to 2.3 billion rand in 2016. The objective is to promote technical education and provide more electricians, welders, plumbers, and other artisans for the economy. We know that many more students are still struggling as they battle with getting a tertiary education because they come from poor families. It is totally unacceptable, therefore, to see that in some of our communities, schools, libraries, clinics, and community centers are being torched and burned to the ground. Young people must refuse to be used in this destructive manner. Remember, it is the better future that goes up in flames. This rogue behavior is unacceptable and hurts the very people who need these facilities most, our youth and the vulnerable. We should remember that not a single school was burned during the June 16, 1976 student uprising. Just recently, we witnessed students doing the unthinkable by burning university buildings on some campuses and destroyed other facilities and furniture just to communicate that they cannot afford the fees. That conduct is unforgivable and takes away what the youth of 1976 died for. We live in a country where freedom of expression, association, and of the media are enshrined in the Constitution, where we know we will not be shot and killed for staging a peaceful march or for stating our grievances. We clearly need to have much more dialogue on how we as communities put across our demands for services. We should not give in to those reactionary forces who are hell-bent and intent on taking our democratic country backward. Let us evoke the spirit of the COSAS slogan, which says, "Forward ever, backward never." We have it in our power to stop this tragedy, which goes against the spirit of our great heroes of 1976. I therefore call on the youth in particular and leaders in communities to be at the forefront of reconstruction and development rather than destruction. We must unite in activities which bring the promise of lifting our people out of poverty and creating a brighter future. Together, we need to undertake some serious introspection and to agree on solutions as a nation. We need the economy to grow so that jobs can be created, especially for our youth. To this end, in conjunction with the labor and business sectors, we need to see more programs aimed at promoting confidence in the economy. As much as we encourage young people to open up businesses, more must be done nationally, provincially, and at municipal levels to provide the necessary skills, funding, and markets for youth business. The youth, as the future of the country, have an important role to play in shaping our new democratic country. On the 3rd of August, we go to the polls to elect new municipal representatives. I urge the youth to come out in their thousands to exercise this right that many died for. And to those of you who are not young enough to vote or old enough to vote, I want to urge you to encourage your parents, older brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles to vote. Each one of us has an obligation to ensure that we participate in the decision-making process of our democracy. You cannot make demands if you are not willing to participate in our democracy when you are called upon to do so. This, after all, is what our social contract entails. All of us, including the youth, have to become involved in our communities, be it on health committees, the crafting of integrated development plans for the needs of a particular community, or attending school governing board meetings. There is a place and a space for all of us to become active and involved. We all have the potential to be agents of change. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to emphasize that to solve today's challenges, we have to work with each other. We have to heal our communities, foster a culture of building and being united in positive action. I am confident that South Africa's youth is more than ready to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Wherever you find yourself, in the schools, in religious institutions, universities, at work, in sporting bodies, as cultural workers, be assured that we love you. And your well-being remains our first priority. We stand firm in our conviction that you deserve a better quality of life than the generations that came before you. I look forward to following the deliberations over the coming days, as the youth of 1976 demonstrated so powerfully. Together, we can build a brighter and more prosperous future for all, as the Freedom Charter calls upon us to do. Madam Program Director, I thank you very much for the attention of the gathering. Thanks.
If I remember well, the slogan was power, 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 power. And it was very deliberate because at the end of this line, it was black power. It was necessary for us as young people then to call for black power because we're a generation which was asking ourselves questions. We're trying to identify ourselves. We were supposedly in a country but not citizens in our country. We were asserting our own. We wanted a future, and that is why we ran amok. And yet, when the bullets ran, we started singing again. Senzeni na. We have a documentary, a short video clip, which we thought would be beneficial for you to watch. We will show you the aftermath of June 16. Can we have the video, please?
The black man, and especially the black child, identifies Afrikaners with the policeman, with the man from the Bantu Affairs Department, with the location superintendent. It has become the language of the present.
Okkie is diep in gedagte terwyl hy hankend aanstap skool toe. Hy stap alleen omdat hy nog niemand by die nuwe skool ken. Hy is 'n nuwe
At secondary school, Bantu education decrees that subjects must be taught in English and Afrikaans as well as the mother tongue. Frequently, the rules were broken because of difficulties in finding blacks who would teach their subject in Afrikaans.
Because the children have this negative attitude towards Afrikaans. The Afrikaans teacher in the classroom is going to try and force these kids to study Afrikaans. So at all times, Afrikaans is associated with force and very, very harsh people.
kom nie. Dit beteken
In 1974, the authorities insisted that the ruling on Afrikaans teaching in the Johannesburg area must be strictly adhered to.
verder, maar nou het sy pa besluit dat hy vir sy hoërskooljare in die koshuis op Verenwil moet kom bly.
On June the 13th last year, the Soweto Students' Representative Council, the SSRC, was formed in secrecy. 3 members of the original committee have escaped the police dragnet for over a year. One of them gave us this version of events.
We decided to stage a demonstration so that the government must actually know that we are actually fighting this issue of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction. The conditions of the demonstration were it must be peaceful. If we happen to be confronted by the police during the demonstration, who may perhaps order us to disperse, we should do so with immediate effect. The great day scheduled for the demonstration was the 16th of June, 1976.
At 8:15 in the morning, and precisely according to plan, students simultaneously marched out of 5 schools in Soweto, intending to protest the Afrikaans issue in a mass meeting at the Orlando Football Stadium. 4,000 students were involved by the time the march reached this school at 8:45 a.m. At the same time, on a June morning this year, we arrived at the Orlando West High School.
Now lead to your classes orderly.
The government gives minimal support to high schools for blacks, and Orlando West High was built and largely maintained by the people of Soweto. Until June last year, it was their pride, with a high reputation for its academic standard and discipline. Today, it is in chaos. Barely 100 pupils out of a total of 900 have come to school, and they are keeping the teachers out of the classes.
This was my office until a few weeks after the 16th of June. And that is the window at which I stood to watch the events of the 16th of June. The police appeared at the top, just a little above the trees you see over there.
produced a pistol, and without giving any warning shot, he then shot one of the students. We then scattered, trying to protect ourselves. From there, the students ran all over the place. Some of them were running home. We couldn't really understand what was happening because all was said that it was going to be just a peaceful demonstration.
Policemen started shooting at random, freely and without an aim.
It was from the first a few shots that a small boy was shot down just next to that tree across there.
He was 11 years old. He was shot through the mouth, and one boy went to his rescue. That boy is in exile now. He picked him up and he tried to find transport to take him to hospital. And the only car that he got was a well-lit newspaper car. And when he reached that car, that boy had already died.
We became angry. We wanted to avenge that boy, and we confronted the police, and they shot the tear gas canisters at us. We were all coughing, and it was drawing tears from our eyes. We ran into the houses, and they were trying to come to those houses and collect us in the house. So it was just a mere panic.
The students found themselves being rounded up by the policemen. They couldn't go home. They were at the center of the policemen. So they remained to fight with the policemen, throwing stones back, and the policemen were shooting at them. When a policeman threw a tear gas canister at them, they would run to take it immediately before it burst and throw it back to the policeman. There was an incident where I saw a student charging at the policeman, using a dustbin lid as a shield. He would throw himself down and wake up quickly to throw a stone at the policeman. The policeman would try to shoot and miss the boy, and the boy would sleep and try and use the lid to shield himself. It reached a saturation point where they could no longer take anything without retaliating.
We are all angry, avenging our brothers who were shot dead and those who were injured. So they decided to destroy every building which belongs to the government and the government cars.
By mid-afternoon, the student demonstration had been fanned into a full-scale riot. All cars entering Soweto were stopped at student roadblocks and their drivers forced to make the Black Power salute before they could proceed. Mr. Edelstein and Mr. Esterhazen, two officials of RAB, the bureaucracy which controls Soweto, were murdered. The number of black victims is not known, and their names are not recorded. As students attacked the beer halls, symbols of their parents' humiliation, thugs and looters joined in. The whole of Soweto was caught in the crossfire.
Police were out in full force by late afternoon. And the whole atmosphere was just tear gas and nothing else.
The police were shooting at anybody they met, young or old. They were just shooting mad.
They threw these tear gas bombs even into the houses.
By the afternoon of June the 17th, Soweto was in flames, and the violence had spread to the other black townships of the Johannesburg area, particularly Alexandra, to the north of the city. White university students who had marched with black workers in Johannesburg in support of Soweto were attacked by police and white vigilantes armed with chains and crowbars. In Soweto, the violence continued unabated. Orlando Police Station was the center of operations. One black clergyman recalls the scene here a year ago.
On the 17th of June, I went to Orlando Police Station as a priest. A van came, a big truck, police. I couldn't see what was inside. I just heard people crying in deep pain. I went inside the police station where I saw people who were injured, shot. Some of them you could see they were in great pains, but the police didn't seem not to bother about them. There was no medical attention given to them. There were about 80 dead people.
And injured?
Injured people there, it was over 100, I would say. In the evening, more bodies were coming in. I found that among the corpses, there was a person there, an elderly person. He was not dead by that time. would see the person struggling among the corpses. I heard one white policeman coming in and saying that others should come and see Black Power resurrecting. Everything was just humorous to them. Later on, when I went out, leaving, the person was dead now. Corpses were taken away in the government mortuary van. They were thrown in just like bags of potatoes into the van. It shows how life has become cheap in our country, especially when you are black. You are nothing.
We wish to apologize for the lights, which made seeing the first part of the video difficult. We will rescreen this video later on for those who are interested to see it over again. But amongst us, we do have people who participated. We also asked the delegations from provinces, try as much as possible to find veterans of June 16 from the different provinces and to include them in the delegations which are here. And I think amongst us, we are happy, we are sad, we are in between. Happy because 30 years we have not seen each other. Happy because we survived. Happy because we brought children into this world who are taking over from us. Sad because too many young people died for what was their right. But I wish to take this opportunity to invite Dotsi Memela to talk about not only her experiences, but the experiences of the youth of 76. Dotsi.
I stand here in front of you with pride, privilege, and gratitude. I stand here with pride because it is because of the struggle of 1976 and the struggle before us that was charted by the youth that were here today, that we today can say we can choose where we want to study. Yes, of course, this in some instances has to do with whether we have access to finance or not. But that we can choose as young people as to what careers we want to pursue. That the color of our skin does not define where we can be and what we can do. I stand here with pride, privilege, and gratitude. Privilege because I was fortunate that having come from a family that I still consider at the time having been destitute, that my mother, who was a domestic worker at the time, taught us that the only thing that can get you out of poverty is education. That together with my twin sister, we took the path and said, not only will we pursue education, but we will also ensure that we contribute in the struggle against apartheid. And that was a privilege. I stand here with gratitude because we were able to go to school, which was in many instances funded through the liberation struggle or through the liberation support that was galvanized by the international communities that were able to go to school. but also were able to be involved in the underground struggle. I again stand here sad that many that were part of the 1976 struggle did not live to see today to celebrate together with us the 40th anniversary of June 16. There were other young people that joined the struggle, young people like Noktula, young people like the comrade from KZN of Ndwandwe, and I'm specifically singling out women because I believe before I am, they are. And I'm here not only to represent me, but to represent those that have passed on. And in their involvement in the struggle, they did not live to see today. Today we celebrate the 40th anniversary of June 16. I was privileged to serve under Khotso Siatlulo's leadership, who served together with other women that were in the leadership at the time. I was only a leader of my school, and at the time, not only did I even think I had a right to be a leader, I didn't even think I had the capabilities of also to lead the student body in my school. Hence, I say I am privileged. Both the 1976 and again the 2015 and 2016 youth struggles have been centered around education. We had an engagement with other young leaders from different universities where we were looking ahead to say, where do we want to be as a nation 40 years from now? And it was exciting to acknowledge the fact that as students of 1976, the advantage we had was we were disciplined cadres. And we want to hope that as our young people chart their own path, that they can take back that responsibility of making sure that they become disciplined whilst they engage and demand their rights, particularly when it comes to issues that relate to access in education. We were indeed a disciplined group and kept the focus. Today's youth is advantaged because much as they face challenges regarding economic freedom and opportunities to jobs, they not only have freedom of association, but can pursue any profession and careers they choose. With us, if you are a woman, the only careers that you could choose was to be either a teacher, a nurse. You couldn't be an engineer. Today, young people can fly planes, whether they are men or women. They can be engineers. They can choose where they want to contribute to the development of our nation. The struggle of 1976 related to language issue, whilst the recent #FeesMustFall struggle relate to a wide range of issues, but again, central to it is financial access to education to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. We had an exciting dialogue between women that were involved in 1976 and those that were involved in 2005, 2006. And what was brought to bear was that patronage continues to be central to the struggle of today. Women continue to suffer triple oppression in terms of gender, race, and class. A call was made on women to address the following: to respect themselves and prove their potential and refrain to some of the challenges that young people face today, which are those of teenage pregnancy and those of alcohol and drug abuse. And I stand here as a mother in pain because I've seen the destruction of what drugs can do to our communities, to what they can actually do to families, as we've seen recently with Comrade Hope, where a child can take the life of a mother because of drug abuse. The call was also made against women's emotional abuse, sexual harassment, and rape, and oppressive behaviors that continue to destroy women's morale. A call was made to continue to lift as we rise, because as we believe that as township children who are disadvantaged, you will find that children from rural communities are even more disadvantaged than we are. They don't have access to technology that we take for granted. In many instances, they cannot even apply to go to tertiary because they don't have access to technology. A call was made to support and taking TVET education seriously. In many instances, we think we can only succeed when we go to universities. Yet when you look at where we are as a country, our needs are more for people that can build roads, for people that can ensure that we can connect, we have electricity. Therefore, we need to make sure that in instances where we cannot go to university, we can go to TVET, especially because government has ensured that in many instances you can access that education without having to struggle for fees. A call was also made to support Technogirl, and together we stand. Young women are concerned about debt bondage and having no freedom to economic participation, because in many instances, by the time they complete, they are in debt. But again, we can't talk about access to finance for education and say it necessarily has to be for all, because some parents can afford. But we need to ensure that those parents that cannot afford get access for their children to access education. A call was made on women to respect themselves and prove their potential, to also protect themselves to the phenomenon that has become a big phenomenon in our country, which is a phenomenon of blessers, which we have to work against as young girls and as parents. Much as we understand that in some instances it's because of lack of opportunities and because we're wanting to change our lives, we cannot only change our lives through blessers, especially because opportunities now exist for us. Government understands that the role of youth is important, but it's very important for the youth to understand what their role are. Much as in some instances we may feel that we are dispossessed, that we don't have a national identity, which I think us and only us can create. We need to figure out for ourselves as young people what our identity is, and that as the youth of South Africa, only we can make a difference, not only in our lives, but in the lives of our nation. Again, as I said, I want to plead with young people to ensure that they lift as they rise so that we can create a better life for all, those that have and those that don't have. And again, to say, hashtag patronage must fall. Thank you.
Mabayeke ma bauye kumhlaba emabayeke ma mabawuye kumhlaba wethu thina sizwe sikalela lela izwe elathathwa gama mabawuyeke kumhlaba mabayeke mabawuye kumhlaba abantwana be-Afri bakhalela kalela izwe elahluthwa gaba mabawuyeke mabaye kumhlaba mabayeke mabawuye amandla all power I want to acknowledge, and the reason I'm becoming a little bit more emotional is that I saw Dan Muntsisi walking in. Dan Muntsisi and the veterans. Ngicela nisukume abantwana benu banibone. Maden. Dumelang, 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 dumelang. Ke a leboga. We are also happy to welcome the Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Inyamazana, Ubuti Manamela. Emantati bawona. I want to now hand over to the Deputy Speaker to direct us to the commissions. You will remember that in the provinces, Bandabam, order. I was being deliberately provoked there. You will remember that in the provinces, we started parliaments of the young. We discussed amongst ourselves in provinces. We are here as delegations from provinces to then see if, as provinces of South Africa, we are agreed on the positions that we have discussed and arrived at the provinces. So the Deputy Speaker is going to direct us to where we should go.
Madam Speaker, I hope I'm in order. Madam Chairperson, we now enter into the space to continue to develop content. And content can only be successfully developed through dialogue. And dialogue means your views might be completely embraced, amended, or completely rejected. So when you enter dialogue, you enter it with that spirit. You don't assume that your views are completely right and must be agreed by everybody immediately. We are talking about the injunction of the National Development Plan that says our progress will be determined by dialogue. Those who imposed war on us in the past, because we never wanted war, we've always sought peace. But it didn't mean we were cowards. And so now that it's our time to continue to rebuild and reconstruct our country, we are absolutely delighted that as the legislative sector, Parliament, National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces, and the 9 provincial legislatures have agreed that we must conduct the theme of this is called following up on our commitment to the youth. Because in the statements you have heard made here already, there is indication of some of those commitments. But we do not assume because they have been made, therefore we are done. This is why we have 3 commissions here that are going to look at youth and economic development. I'm told that in your registration tag, it's colored blue. And that Commission 2, which will be youth and access to education, which I'm told yours will be yellow, and youth and social cohesion, the color code there is red. And this last one, the red one, will go to the basement. You are going to be directed there as you walk towards that place, you'll be directed where to go to. And Commission 2, youth and access to education, remains in this main hall, and the Commission 1, youth and economic development, goes to ground level. Now, in your program, the co-chairpersons of Commission 1 is Honorable E.M. Coleman, Member of Parliament, who chairs the Portfolio Committee of Economic Development, and Honorable Makue, who chairs the Select Committee on Economic and Business Development. And there will be a veteran of the 1976. Now, let's clarify that methods with the greatest of respect. They are veterans of the 1976 student struggles. They are not veterans. Ubaba uMtshali, who's 8, uzozibiza ni yena. Xa bezibiza ngama-veterans. I thought it's a useful qualification so that we remember that this program is intended for us to draw from their experiences to inform today's experiences. It's absolutely useful. They have also moved from where they were then. They are today here. So they will constitute part of the reference team in your commissions to provide insights on the issues that are going to be debated and discussed in the commission. I also want to make one request that, please, man, just as what you must individually and collectives must take as your takeaway. Tomorrow when we complete, when we go away, there are 3 questions that you must write down now so that you answer them as you proceed to go home. Now that we know what we now know, what must we stop doing? What must we keep doing? And finally, what must we start doing? These are critical to implementation of what arises from here at an individual and as a collective. This is to ensure that this is not going to turn up to become a talk shop of having fun in Kliptown, which is great, to walk in the footsteps of great men and women who once walked around here, but that we must produce content that has immediate personal and collective implications for the work that we do. We also want to say to you that there is going to be time frames. They are in your programs. They will be adjusted accordingly by your chairpersons then, facilitators. And the rules in the commissions are simple. I have explained what dialogue is. Please listen to others without interrupting them, except for asking for clarification. When you speak, be assertive without fear of favor. Don't suppress it because you think it is controversial. Take it out precisely because it is controversial. It is precisely because of that that we can work with it and produce big ideas from a combination of brave ideas that comes from people who are not cowards, who are brave. And so we would like you to understand that as a rule, so that no one, because they say something you don't like at that time, you shout them down. That's not dialogue. You are not producing content that we would like to be proud about. So please, these are basic rules in there. So don't expect those chairpersons and facilitators to keep calling you to order like it's my job description, please. It's very easy. I know you have capacity to self-manage so that we really produce useful ideas from this. The most important things you know, you will be guided in there. The chairpersons will do the guidance. This is dialogue. Please feel free to express your views and so on, including representing the views of those who, if they were here, they would express them. And so you are here in your representative capacity. Please remember that you were chosen amongst others who could have easily made it, but somehow you went through the eye of the needle, if I may say that. And you ended up here. So do speak too on behalf of those whose ideas, even if you disagree with them, they might have expressed, so that you enrich the content of the dialogue in your commission. Is that okay? Thank you very much. We proud ourselves as being both representative and participatory. So let's combine the two to produce a menu of good content. I'm advised that after commissions, you'll proceed straight to the buses. There are visits that have been organized to the Hector Peterson Memorial and to the Apartheid Museum. Buses will depart at 2 o'clock and back here at 5. When we are on tours, we must self-manage. I assume that potentially all of you here who are young people here, there are older people here, you must consider yourself a marshal. Firstly, you must marshal yourself to be on time, punctual. Time is a revolutionary value. If you dispense with it irresponsibly, you are in big trouble. So we would like you to manage your time and yourself appropriately so that nobody has to call on you to please come into the bus. The bus must leave at 2 o'clock because you want to be called. I mean, really? And you say you are our leader now, not in the future? So exercise your leadership now, please, and be on time every time so that when we have exposed ourselves to those environments that we are going to enrich our intellectual content, we can make a huge difference to the quality of the debates we will have tomorrow. Those are the announcements. Those are the commitments. You know your color coding. If your color coding has disappeared for whatever reason, there are people who will help you quickly to deploy you appropriately to the correct places. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I also think it might be a little bit revolutionary not to emphasize the break for tea, Akir. That those who might want to drink tea might take it along or find time not to take away the time, which I think is more precious to deliberate in the commissions. Ke lebogela maitsulo, ke lebogela attention. Is that a point of order? That's a hand that is up. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it will save us time if you come up. Yeah, it will save us time if you speak from here.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. All of you are in order. And by the way, you're beautiful. Honorable Speaker, this is a parliament of young people, organized by our own government for us to air our views. It remains my conviction that you have trust in us. And I'm meant to believe that amongst us, there are people that which are to inherit this country. As I'm seated there watching the program, Honorable Chairperson, I don't want to lie, and I must say it here, quite frank and honest with high level of respect. I'm uncomfortable with the fact that the entire program is led by the parliament. In this instance, I'm trying to say this should have been our day. This should have been a day where we trust a young person to chair the session. We trust a young person to be a scribe. If as this generation we've been able to produce Honorable Bhuti Manamela, Stella Ndabeni, and many others, we must then be trusted that we can chair the parliament with high level of respect. Thank you very much, Chair.
The nice thing about young is that you speak your mind, sometimes prematurely. Today, if you look at your programs very well, Banabak, you will notice that the formal youth parliament sits tomorrow. That sitting of the youth parliament will then have a speaker who will come from you. You will run that thing. Tomorrow we will sit. But today, the commissions are to enable you to condense, to find the controversies which Deputy Speaker alluded to find common ground in the commissions. And even though it is a parliament, yalona bacha, it is still run under the auspices of parliament. So we do have a responsibility to ensure that enough space is created for you to come to a parliament, youth tomorrow, having heard one another across the provinces. Because if we take you straight in and we say this is a formal sitting today, we will then have to have 9 speakers on one issue. Kanti, if you go into commissions, you will come out with resolutions which will represent your sentiment across South Africa. So, yes, Mtanam, what you are saying is in order. We trust you enough, and that is why tomorrow you will have your day. Ngiyabonga. Thank you very much. I think our Deputy Speaker has told us that we can be led to the commissions. Please use the time. Argue your points, debate your points. Crudeness has never been a good thing in the debates. You must always win your battles with your words, never physically, never with insults. Good luck.
Youth Day reminds us every year of the day black students rejected Afrikaans as a medium of instruction and protested in their thousands against Bantu education. That set off countrywide protests. Youth were killed, jailed, and driven into exile. South Africa was never the same again. What can the youth of today learn from the youth of 1976? 40 years later, the South African legislative sector celebrates the 40th anniversary of June 16, 1976 by hosting the National Youth Parliament under the theme Following Up on Our Commitments to the Youth, partnering with our youth to strengthen local governance. Watch the National Youth Parliament live on Parliament TV on the 29th and 30th of June 2016.
And I always think if I didn't die on June 16, I wasn't raped, I wasn't sexually molested, at least, or I always say at least I was tortured, as if it's any better. you know, and some people would have been exposed to quite horrendous things, you know, and when you read about how people were really abused by the system, even physically, at least we were abused emotionally. It was quite scary years ago, you know. I talk about it so lightly, but it was scary. It was frightening because when they took you from that cell, right, John Foster, and you go to the 9th floor, you just pray.
Johannesburg, capital of English-speaking South Africa. As familiarly British as Tunbridge or Bude, except that here the winter lawns are browned by 6 months of gentle, unbroken sunshine.
Would you like white?
And there are others to serve Sunday lunch and help to maintain standards at a level that we may find more difficult to sustain. But the rest is familiar. There's a Rodine school for girls and a King Edward public school for boys. There are Rotary dinners, scout conventions, homes for distressed cats, and charity drives for the most deserving causes.
Take beds for the blind.
Johannesburg is a city that appears to function by all the decent British middle-class norms.
First aid?
Yet only 11 miles away in Soweto and 4 miles away in Alexandra, the blacks who enable Johannesburg to function have experienced the most brutal act of aggression in South African history since the end of the Boer War. Since June last year, 229 people have been killed, 2,599 injured in Johannesburg's black townships. And these are the figures given by the South African police. United Nations estimates are over 1,000 dead. In Soweto, their graves are unmarked. 9 miles away in Boysens, a white district of Johannesburg, even a cat deserves a headstone. For me, the nightmare of Johannesburg, and indeed the whole of English-speaking South Africa to which I once belonged, is that it calls into question all the basic British values that I cherish.
I didn't know we had this talent in the
Anglican Church on Sunday.
Oh, it was wonderful. All went off so well. The bishop was thrilled with it too. Bless you. Come and have some tea. Hello. Super to see you.
In some illogical way, scenes like this have always seemed a protection against violence by the state against human life, the knock on the door at dawn.
Come and have a cup of tea. Oh, gosh.
But it happened, and only 8 miles away from this church. And not to strangers, but to the very people whose labor sustains this English community.
When? What do you mean goodbye?
Well, we're going.
When?
I must go home now.
Oh, I see. You're not coming for tea.
One has often wondered how ordinary Germans could have claimed an innocence of events in the 1930s. Perhaps it would be more valuable to ask a similar question today, and in a community that shares our English language and our culture. These are our kith and kin, housewives, ordinary decent people, learning how to defend their British way of life by force.
That's all it is.
And this is a measure of the violence that erupted in Soweto, home to more than 1 million blacks whose daily lives are inextricably bound to the city of Johannesburg. We returned to South Africa a year after the June insurrection in Soweto. For me, it was the first prolonged visit in 10 years. At first glance, it seemed that Johannesburg was more aggressively self-confident than ever. On the surface at least, there was nothing to suggest a society experiencing major upheavals within and increasing pressures from without. The cars were flashier, the hospitality richer, the department stores and new shopping arcades better stocked than they had ever been. In a place like this, Soweto seems as far away as Biafra was from Orpington or Hampstead.
We're selling these on behalf of the Soweto Children's Program. They crochet those with ends and bits of primly, so that they're only very cheap because we get the material given to us for nothing. And these are tumblers.
These are images from another world, to be admired but hardly understood.
Well, I don't know. You know, I've seen some of the stuff that looks very, very much the same.
It is the irony of Johannesburg that whites who travel regularly to Europe and America will never experience life in the townships on the edge of their own city. But the blacks who live in those places must enter into the most intimate areas of white life.
There's no mountain high enough.
In this city, all experience passes in one direction. The blacks know. But the Londoner is better informed about Soweto than some of the people I met here. And they're deliberately loud, screen from disturbing truths. The government controls broadcasting and uses it for its own ends. The free press has been intimidated. In parks and public places, outward appearances have been skillfully changed. The barriers seem to be coming down. Blacks and whites can now share the same lifts and park benches, enjoy the same stretch of water at Zoo Lake, even if convention still keeps them in separate boats. The first-class hotels and restaurants have gone multiracial. At Tony's Cafe down the road, a black could be arrested for taking his sandwich with whites. But at the Holiday Inn poolside, diplomats from a few African countries, representatives of the Bantustans, and a small black elite are allowed to take their food with whites. Ironically, it is in this very place that we are made to understand the utter irrelevance of it all.
These people mustn't come and tell us that the fact that you guys can swim in the same pool is fantastic. The fact that you guys can ride in the same bus is fantastic. What we want is freedom. That is fantastic. Freedom is fantastic. And when we black people in this country have taken this freedom for ourselves, we will show the white man what sharing and loving means, because these people don't know.
I think those people have to be prayed for. And this is what has to be done for the white man in this country. We've got to pray for the white man, because he is damn lost.
This man with his foot in the sea and his other foot in the bush, the gun in his hand, says he's changing. That is not change. The devil also changes, but he doesn't lose his horns.
One day last year in Soweto has changed the mood forever.
June 16 of 1976, which we in Soweto like to speak of as the June insurrection, has totally made the cosmetic changes irrelevant. June 16 has told the white man, your opening of your swimming pools to us, the opening of your parks to us, the opening of your lifts to us, sending a few of us to go overseas with Springbok badges has not helped. What we want, what we demand, is more than that. We want to have a society created from scratch that will destroy what this white man has set up in the southern part of Africa. We want something new, new trees, new flowers, new birds, new leaves, new stones. Because if our society must be built on the filth that these people have done, then it's doomed. It's doomed.
Soweto, a complex of black townships on the southwest corner of Johannesburg. With an estimated population of 1.25 million, Soweto is the second largest city in South Africa, well over twice the size of Pretoria, the capital. Yet until recently, it was not marked on the maps, and the people were denied personal security, the right to own their own homes. Every day, Sowetans pour into white homes, offices, and factories in Johannesburg, leaving the township to the children and the teenagers, the generation that inspired the revolt. Soweto never relaxes. The dreaded cortege of Leyland Land Rovers on house-to-house arrest. Military hippos on patrol. Nobody knows the extent of death and injury. We have managed to piece together a statement of basic causes, as well as the events from just 6 days in an 18-month sequence of violence. White commentators and official government spokesmen have already given their version to the world. This statement comes from the people of Soweto. With 2 exceptions, they asked to appear openly on film, aware of the risks they were taking. But as one student said, we want the British people to see the truth in our faces. This is the story of a children's crusade that has changed South Africa forever. A story which must begin at the roots, in a township home.
The average child in Soweto has many responsibilities because the average parent is a working class parent. The father leaves perhaps a little earlier than the mother. He leaves at 4:30, at 5 in the morning. The mother also about an hour later, about 5, 5:30 or 6. And as they leave the house, irrespective of how old the children are, and the responsibility of the house, number one, is left in the hands of that child. This has made this child a very big woman at an early age.
Houses are issued without ceilings, inside doors, water, or sanitation. Few have electricity. The family builds this into a home.
These children are no children at all. Their experiences are very unique when they have to shoulder all the responsibility of the home. When mother will say, fine, you did well today, but should anything go wrong, she won't say, oh, but you're only a child, my child. She'll say, why did this go wrong? Why did you overlook? Why did you become careless? Our children, they may be young, but inexperienced, are very old. When the parents come from work tired, complaining, oh, today there's been a busy day, oh, but that man is on my back. Because of this little, small house, even if you do not want your children to hear, they listen and they get to be part of the audience. Junior, he knows that the white man at work is treating the father, the parents, as boys and girls. These are the things which makes our children take up this stand they are taking, that we must do it for our parents, because our parents, after all, they'll never change. In order to preserve the good name which they enjoy at work, they must be known as good boys.
15th of June, and that is the window at which I stood to watch the events of the 16th of June. The police appeared at the top, just a little above the trees you see over there.
The white cop produced a pistol, and without giving any warning shot, He then shot one of the students.
We then scattered, trying to protect ourselves.
From there, the students ran all over the place. Some of them were running home.
We couldn't really understand what was happening because all was said that it was going to be just a peaceful demonstration.
Policemen started shooting at random, freely and without an end.
It was from the first few shots that a small boy was shot down just next to that tree across there.
He was 11 years old. He was shot through the mouth and one boy went to his rescue. That boy is in exile now. He picked him up and he tried to find transport to take him to hospital. And the only car that he got was the World newspaper car. And when he reached that car, that boy had already died.
We became angry and wanted to avenge that boy. And we confronted the police, and they shot the tear gas canisters at us.
We were all coughing and it was drawing tears from our eyes.
We ran into the houses and they were trying to come to those houses and collect us in the house. So it was just a mere panic.
The students found themselves being rounded up by the policemen. They couldn't go home. They were at the center of the policemen. So they remained to fight with the policemen, throwing stones back, and the policemen were shooting at them. When a policeman threw a tear gas canister at them, they would run to take it immediately before it burst and throw it back to that policeman. There was an incident where I saw a student charging at the policeman, using a dustbin lid as a shield. He would throw himself down and wake up quickly to throw a stone at the policeman. The policeman would try to shoot and miss the boy, and the boy would sleep and try and use the lid to shield himself. They reached a saturation point where they could no longer take anything without retaliating.
We are all angry, avenging our brothers who were shot dead and those who were injured. So they decided to destroy every building which belongs to the government and the government cars.
By mid-afternoon, a student demonstration had been fanned into a full-scale riot. All cars entering Soweto were stopped at student roadblocks and their drivers forced to make the Black Power salute before they could proceed. Mr. Edelstein and Mr. Esterhazen, two officials of RAB, the bureaucracy which controls Soweto, were murdered. The number of black victims is not known, and their names are not recorded. As students attacked the beer halls, symbols of their parents' humiliation, thugs and looters joined in. The whole of Soweto was caught in the crossfire.
The police were out in full force by late afternoon. And the whole atmosphere was just tear gas and nothing else.
The police were shooting at anybody they met, young or old. They were just shooting mad.
They threw these tear gas bombs even into the houses.
I've done nothing to...
This girl, paralyzed from the waist, is struggling at home to keep up her education through a correspondence course. On the night of June the 16th last year, she was walking across the street to visit her uncle, 5 miles away from the first student-police encounter.
When I came back, about 7 o'clock, I did not see the policeman. Then I was shot. They shot me on the back, and then the police came in front, came out at the same time. They've told me that I am paralyzed. I can't walk. When I try to move my leg, they can't move.
After all you've suffered, how have you found the strength to educate yourself?
I thank this because I am alive. Many mothers, they don't know their children where they are. Many mothers, they don't know whether their children are dead or not. Then when I see myself here, I thank the Lord. I thought, in my mind, I thought that I will not be alive anymore. First time when I was praying, I've said, God, why can't you take me? because I'm no longer working. But I found myself say that, and my friends tell me that I must not worry because I can use my hands.
12 miles away, Mrs. Gail Whiteman also remembers June the 16th as a decisive day in her life.
I think my first reaction was absolute terror. My God, what's going to happen? I rushed out and tried to buy a gun. It was actually hysterical. I found the attitudes of the Africans walking around with their mandla signs absolutely terrifying. And then I sat down, I thought, I've got to do something. So I rushed along to civil defense.
June the 16th was also the day when the Johannesburg Fancy Pigeon Club held their championships in Johannesburg, when the University Theatre showed Baby Doll to a multiracial audience, and when Mrs. Rosemary Wingrave took a tango lesson right here at the Arthur Murray School of Dancing, where we found her still dancing on June the 16th this year.
Excellent. My compliments, you've mastered a beautiful step. Well done, Mrs. Wingrave. Very good, lovely.
As the new day broke, heavy police and military reinforcements were taking up positions throughout Soweto, and the Hippo made its first dramatic appearance. A military vehicle designed with an exceptionally high clearance as protection from guerrilla landmines, the Hippo was to become a new symbol of white power in Soweto.
I personally saw police parked a few yards from my rooms in Kliptown in a police Hippo, taking pot shots at little kids, no more than 8, who were playing in an area just opposite my rooms, just shooting at them. I actually went to this policeman and spoke to the man in charge. I asked to see the senior officer. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name now. And I actually said to him, what do you think you're doing? You're actually shooting at children, playing in an open field.
Policemen, when they find any kid wearing school uniform around the street, they took him into this police van or just thrash him or shoot at him. The situation was really tense at that day.
I saw a man who was from a bus that was from town, which meant that the person was from work. I saw that man being shot at the back of his head. He was from a bus going home, still wearing his working clothes and overall. He had not done anything. He had not thrown a stone. He had not said anything. He was shot and he died instantly. And a big hole was left at the back of his head.
This child, paralyzed from the waist, is just one small statistic in the unpublished lists of dead and injured. Her father, an unskilled laborer, told us how a family had been destroyed by a single shot on June the 17th. When I came from work, the neighbors told me that my daughter had been taken to hospital. She'd been shot in the back on her way home from school and was paralyzed. My wife had a weak heart, and before my child came out of hospital, she died from strain and worry. To attend to my wife's funeral, to visit my daughter in hospital, I lost 3 days of work. So they sacked me. I haven't received any unemployment money or compensation for my daughter's injury. I can't even afford to go on paying what I owe towards the cost of the wheelchair. By the afternoon of June the 17th, Soweto was in flames, and the violence had spread to the other black townships of the Johannesburg area, particularly Alexandra, to the north of the city. White university students who had marched with black workers in Johannesburg in support of Soweto were attacked by police and white vigilantes armed with chains and crowbars. In Soweto, the violence continued unabated. Orlando Police Station was the center of operations. One black clergyman recalls the scene here a year ago.
On the 17th of June, I went to Orlando Police Station as a priest. A van came, a big truck, police. I couldn't see what was inside. I just heard people crying in deep pain. I went inside the police station where I saw people who were injured, were shot. Some of them you could see they were in great pains, but the police didn't seem not to bother about them. There was no medical attention given to them. There were about 80 dead people.
And injured?
Injured people there, it was over 100, I would say. In the evening, more bodies were coming in. I found that among the corpses, there was a person there, an elderly person. He was not dead by that time, but you could see the person struggling among the corpses. I heard one white policeman coming in and saying that others should come and see Black Power resurrecting. Everything was just humorous to them. Later on, when I went out, leaving, the person was dead now. Corpses were taken away in the government mortuary van. They were thrown in just like bags of potatoes into the van. It shows how life has become cheap in our country, especially when you are black. You are nothing.
June the 17th was also the day when Mr. Nino Gadsos was committed to trial on a charge of shooting and killing his servant maid in fun, when the Garden of Eden Social Club met at the President Hotel, Johannesburg, and when the Reverend Parker of St. John's Anglican Church reminded the servants of Sandton of their historic ties with Britain.
To announce that on Sunday night we are celebrating in this church the Silver Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II of Britain.
A message that was given extra significance when we visited St. John's on June the 17th this Jubilee year.
This or may not know this, but South Africa was a member of the Commonwealth, and so Queen Elizabeth II was our queen. In fact, her 21st birthday was spent in South Africa.
These are migrant workers, mostly recruited from black homelands. They are largely uneducated, desperately poor, and separated from their wives and children. They are permitted in urban areas as and when white-owned industry requires them, and they have no security beyond their short-term contracts. In Soweto, 43,000 migrant workers, segregated according to sex and tribe, are housed in barracks, or hostels as they are officially known. 9 of these are for men, 1 for women. If the residents of Soweto have a second-class status, these people form a third class. Vulnerable, insecure, and unnaturally isolated, they can at least relieve their tensions every Sunday in bursts of tribal energy. On August the 23rd last year, that energy found a more dangerous outlet. When Soweto parents stayed away from work in sympathy with the students, the hostel dwellers did not strike. Harassed by students when they returned from work, these Zulus of the Mijimklofi hostel armed themselves.
To demonstrate the black solidarity.
Gatsa Buthelezi, Chief Minister of the Zulu homeland, a government appointee who nevertheless has earned an international reputation, has no doubts about the sequence of events.
Then the police thought this was a golden opportunity to create division in the black community by inciting them and urging them, because they were bitter. They took advantage of the bitterness of the hostel dwellers to urge them to attack the residents of Soweto. They were clutching at anything, you know, to ensure that they broke down the solidarity and the resistance of the people at that time.
One of the reporters happened to be within that perimeter, within the hostel inmates, and he heard one of the policemen telling the inmates, addressing them that, look, please don't damage any property. All what you have to do, you've got to kill these people.
On the evening of August the 23rd, Zulus armed with pangas, knives and clubs burst out of the Mijimplophe hostel and entered the Soweto district of Meadowlands. This old lady was one of their first victims.
We were sitting in the house because those boys were working.
We were received in a spotless front room, decorated with a few simple tokens of her Roman Catholic faith.
Outside, they must go in.
In broken English, she described how the Zulus smashed the windows and doors with their axes and entered this room.
They were frightened. I sit and cry. I used to pray, God help me, God help me.
The eldest of her three sons was hacked to death in front of her.
I cried. He said, as a mama, I'm finished now. Don't cry. He fell down.
Her other two sons, Arthur and Gideon, ran into the street and were butchered there.
Gideon fell down there, he died. And Arthur ran to the opposite there, he died there. Now I was running outside, cried. I don't know if they're dead. I asked the people, where are my children? They say, all dead.
According to the old lady and her neighbors, the police did not intervene, no ambulances were sent, and the bodies lay in the street until the following day. Pro-government press and broadcasting were now able to report to the world that blacks were killing blacks in Soweto. Issues had been confused and the student movement partially discredited. Unaware of the subtleties of politics and propaganda, the people of Meadowlands were left to count the cost they had been forced to pay in human lives.
I wouldn't have lightly myself gone onto the press, to mass media, to say that the police were involved if I didn't establish this in my mind beyond doubt. I've got tapes here of people who actually saw the thing. I've got them in my office. That's why, in fact, I was bold enough to even to say it, because these are very, very serious things to say about the police. But in fact, as far as I'm concerned, beyond any doubt, their involvement was established.
On August the 24th, the hostel dwellers were once more out in force. According to the residents of Soweto and black journalists who gave us photographic evidence, the police were now openly involved on the side of the hostel dwellers.
Well, it was worse that day because there were many, many hostel dwellers. We didn't know where they came from, all of them. And they were with the police because people from here went up. They found the hostel dwellers were talking to the police. And the people came back and said people must get ready to fight because these people are going with police. And then, well, everybody got themselves ready and they went out, all the boys and the men, and we stayed in the houses.
We noticed this green car. Two white policemen were moving around in it, and they were just shooting. And wherever it went past, people were left for dead. Each time they came, people would jump fences and rush into houses, and they would just start shooting like that.
It came along in the corner on the street where I live, and one old man, I think he was coming from work. So this man saw this car, so he tried to run away, and he was shot dead.
People were just scattering. A child was shot. He could be about 13 or 14, you know. He was trying to run away. He was very next to our car. We even got a very picture where the child is now lying dead. He was shot right on the forehead.
On the third day, August the 25th, the hostel riots were subsiding. According to Soweto residents, the police then threw a second vehicle, an unmarked white Valiant, into the attack. This witness claims that he heard firing and ran outside to find that his son had been shot in the head.
Because I saw Leonard lying there, I wanted to go and see what was happening. When I was going there, they told me to go back. But I told them, no, man, this was my son who was lying there. But they insisted that I must go back.
Where was your son shot by the police?
He has 36 bullets on the left leg. That's what we were told at the hospital, that there are 36 on the left leg. 10 round. He was shot here and here.
That bullet went very close to the spine.
Yes. And in the morning when he gets up, his muscles all come together on this leg and it falls now and again. He just falls, his leg just says, because on this left leg, this whole side is lame. He's got no feeling on it. Even if you pinch him, he's got no feeling, even now.
And how badly was your son injured by the police in that car?
His condition was bad for the whole year because he can't walk properly. He's just like a cripple now. He was shot on the left-hand side, just here over the ear here. And there's one mark here. And one on the back. Some on the back here, not even one, some on the back here. Even now, I want to know why did the police shoot him? No, it's the only thing which I really want to know, if the police could shoot such a young boy like this one. For what purpose?
Avis Reservations, Jenny speaking. Can I help you?
In response to the stairways by Soweto workers between August the 23rd and 25th, whites in Johannesburg tried even harder. Avis sent their office staff into the backyard to clean the cars. On a Sunday this June, we attended the funeral of a church elder whose body was taken to Doornkorp, the largest of Soweto's 4 cemeteries. On the western edge of Doornkorp are the graves of those who have died since June 1976, including a student called Jake Mashubani, whom the police allege hanged himself in prison on October the 5th last year. They came to bury Jake Mashubani on Sunday, October the 24th, in a grave 30 yards from here. A friend of Jake's remembers that day.
On October the 24th, we assembled at the graveside because we had come to bury Mashoban, our brother who had died in detention. We were singing freedom songs and raising our clenched fists in salute of our black brother who had died for the cause. It was surprising to see policemen moving from that corner towards that corner in police vehicles. We continued with the whole ceremony as if nothing was happening. We were surprised to hear a policeman shouting at us, telling us that we should disperse. And immediately thereafter, firing a direct shot at the mourners.
People started saying, peace, peace, you know, making the peace sign to the police. And police said, look, disperse. And another shot was fired.
And there people started panicking, running helter-skelter in all directions.
There was just pandemonium, you know, in the cemetery.
People stumbling, some jumping into open graves.
I saw a person falling, but, you know, I couldn't just wait, and I ran.
The police were just shooting indiscriminately. It was like shooting buck running wild.
I was with two little girls. One died on my shoulder. I was trying to save her. She died, she fell down. And the other one fell off. I don't know what happened to that other one. So we all ran to all directions. I don't remember what happened after that.
I ran in all directions and scattered. And after that, I found myself falling down. I didn't know what happened. I didn't remember how I came to the hospital, but I can remember two boys had carried me to the nearby house and gave me some water. And they rushed me to hospital. I didn't know how I get there. I regained consciousness in the hospital. I asked why I'm in the hospital. They said, no, you have been shot. They told me that I was going to have an amputation of right leg. I didn't want them to do that. I said, no, they must leave it like that until I die, if I die. And they said, no, they must cut it. The nurse told me that my wound was so bad and septic. The only thing which they can do, they must amputate the leg. Now I can't move, but I'll continue with the struggle. I will think about my fellow brothers and sisters who died during the demonstration, who are paralyzed by now, in the wheelchairs, doing nothing, because there's nothing they can do. I myself can do anything, because I can get an artificial leg and walk, and again I can struggle until I die. We will fight. Yes, the black man will fight until he gets free, but he must die, he must get injured. Yes, they will kill us, but not all of us. That black child will go. He'll still fight, he'll struggle. He will die. Another one will be born. He will die until we get freedom.
Inko Sustibiko, he died for us in Pretoria. Inko Sustibiko. We're more sharper ideologically. We knew what was and our determination. You see, when you've got knowledge and you've got clarity ideologically, there was nothing that could stop you. You could understand that there's no political system like apartheid that could stop you. As African youth, that's when we made our determination that we'll fight apartheid.